On. Maple syrup. I was trying to figure out how to say that in German, and I actually don't know.
I don't know.
And the reason why is because today, my friends, is a host panel. Oh, before we get started on that, I want to show you something, Erica.
Okay.
This is, you know, this is a bag that is not from Cosmos, but it is a Cosmos bag. And in
Yes,
this
it is
bag,
Christmas Day.
there are random pops and all those weird pops.
Oh,
that
did
I
you
get.
buy a whole bunch of other
Well,
character
no, they're the
sodas?
same ones. I haven't drank one for the last couple of weeks on air, so I figured I'd do it now.
Are
Well,
you
not
gonna
now, but
randomly pull
that
one?
I can randomly pull one later. So remind me.
I think you should randomly pull it now, and then you'll drink it later. Let's
Oh,
find out
that's good.
which.
Okay, so let's see which random weird sparkling water and or pop I get. I've got this one. Oh,
Who'd you get?
I got Clefairy. Clefairy.
Okay, it's gonna be pink.
It is, and it is.
That's Clefable on the front there. Sorry,
Yes.
Igglypuff. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Jigglypuff. Not Clefairy. And it's white peach sparkling water.
That actually sounds nice.
I don't know what makes a white peach any different than another type of peach, but okay.
Color of its flesh? I have no
Is
idea.
there is there an actual white
Isn't
peach that
white
I don't
peach are
know
the
about?
ones that are like the lighter, like the ones that are less yellowy?
Maybe. I
It's
don't know.
probably just grows from a different part of the world.
Yeah, I mean probably like somewhere in Asia where these are from. All right, let's go look up white peach.
Really quickly. Are they the giant ones, like the large
Oh,
fleshy
yeah, you're
ones?
right. It's white peach versus a yellow peach.
Yeah, I think yellow peaches are smaller, and honestly, I think they're juicier, but I think the white peaches are like the larger ones that like where instead of that yellowy color you have, it's like
Mm.
much
Yeah.
lighter.
So some excellent examples of the white varieties are Aspen white, Klondike white, and Sierra snow.
There you go. I don't know. I could just picture them in my head. So
See
good
the
thing
things
it's
that we
real.
learn on maple syrup. It's amazing. This show is
Now you know
awesome.
there's peach differences.
All right. So at some point in the show, I will have to pop um,
The Iggly
this
Buff.
Igglybuff, and yes, and drink it, and it is going to be white peach deliciousness. See, there it is. Oh, so cute.
That is the baby version.
Yes, but definitely pink, and that's why
It's
I
very
got my head mixed up that it was somebody else. But anyways, so welcome to the host panel. We are here today with just Erica and myself. Oftentimes, Lara will jump in, but you know where we're at today. So before we get started, let's say hi to everybody who's here. Hello, Amy, out in the Pacific Northwest, and anybody else who's online. Just type in the chat. Let us know where you're at, and let us know where you're calling in from, or listening from. And if you have any questions for Erica specifically, it's all about Erica today. Put them in
well,
the
so we're
chat,
gonna
and we'll
talk
get
about
them answered.
Essen.
Well, I've never been,
Mm,
so yeah, it's all about Erica's first trip
it was.
to where? To Spiel Messe 2022.
Yeah, Spiel Messe 2022. So yeah,
How'd
it
you
was
go?
my first ever Essen. So it was a lot. It was like a whole whack of Gen Cons smashed together.
That's a good example. That's a good descriptor. It's like you were kind of telling me just before we started, like, there are a lot of halls, Sen. I don't think you understand. Like there's a ton of halls.
Oh
Like
yeah, because
endless
like I
halls.
mean, I can talk about games I played, but I made like a huge list of games that I still didn't collect. And part of it is I didn't get to play a bunch of them. And other ones, to be honest, I could talk about them later, but they'll be here soon enough. So it's fine. They can wait. They didn't need suitcase space.
Right? Because, they'll be here at some point.
That's
So
it. Yeah.
So I've heard that Essen is, people describe it as like football field sized like areas, like tracts of space where it's just endless displays, and not like open gaming space, and not like what we have here at American and Canadian conventions where it's like gaming space where you can just sit down and play the games. What's it like there? Describe like the first foot you stepped into the actual convention area.
Am
What
I
was that
able to
like?
share videos or only you?
I think you might be able to. Oh, actually, you know what? It might only be me. But if you go over to like your left-hand column over here, you might see like screen share. Do you see that?
I got video editor and graphic generator.
No,
It's all good.
sorry.
I mean, it's not the best video. I realized after it was a little shaky, but I took some of the floor. So what I would say more is everybody every publisher has dedicated floor space that they will sit down and play that game.
Hmm.
So it's not the same demo drill over and over again that you would think at a Gen Con where it's like, what's my like 10-minute pitch, my 5-minute pitch, whatever it is, like push that table, spin it, spin it. I don't, you never really got that from anything. It's like, no, people are playing, you're gonna wait. So I mean, some of the booths had huge amounts of play space. It was very, very dedicated to them though. I
Yes, right.
wouldn't say that if you bought a game and you wanted to play it, you would be playing at a hotel the way you'd probably see somebody playing at Gen Con. But at Gen Con, you'd have you're right. Somewhere there'd be tables where it's like,
You
oh,
can
go play
play
in the
whatever here.
hall or whatever it is. That doesn't exist.
Right. So it's all very much vendor oriented space where those vendors are teaching their games
Yes.
and only their games. And if you played something else there, you might be like frowned upon in a very German fashion.
Yeah, it's kind of like probably I would think it'd be in the way.
Yeah.
um, and to be fair, there was to show how get a sense of how big this really is. There are more than one person selling the same game on the floor,
Yes, I've heard that.
right? So I don't know how else to explain other than that it's like it can sustain multiple people selling the same game
Yeah.
at the
And
same time.
and so sometimes I've heard that it might be different language versions because it's pretty international in Europe, right? Like lots of people from different countries come to Spiel. And then also I've heard that, you know, some of the companies have like multiple booths, like in
Yeah.
different floor space
Oh, I
because
want to say like
it's so friggin'
Asmodee had
huge.
well, I think Asmodee had like 4 different stores.
Yeah, they probably have a store at every second hall, right?
Pretty much.
And some of the other ones are ginormous, like, and for things that you don't think about because we don't know them in North America for that particular project or product. But companies like, I'm thinking of like Thames and Cosmos. I'm thinking of companies like, um, uh, who did our
You know,
game? Anyways, a lot of them do like educational stuff and science stuff and all these other things that are actually still at this event. For
mhm,
some reason, who knows? But it's like their floor space is just ginormous, like giant spaces dedicated just to that company and
like
all the stuff they have.
a really good example of the difference is if you thought of like if you can picture the Gen Con floor, if you thought of the size of the booth of let's say like Amigo,
Yeah,
where it's just going to be a little corner booth somewhere that wouldn't be any bigger than let's say what we consider like a small to medium sized publisher space in Gen Con
yeah. So
at
like 20 by 20 or something,
something like that. Now at something like an Essen, like you have to understand, especially and we can get into this more because it's so much more group and family friendly gaming. It would
right?
have a booth the size like, it had probably the equivalent of 30 play tables by itself,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
what a difference if you think about what that really means.
And at all those tables, they're like assigned to a different game or several, maybe to the same game,
Sometimes.
and they all have like a teacher available at that table.
A lot of them do. A lot of the areas have multiple teachers available, like, they're there that's the thing, people are genuinely there to play, and that was really cool to see, like, if you again, if you I keep comparing it to Gen Con because it's the biggest North American con. When you think of Gen Con, do you think of like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna go play a game on the floor?"
Right.
Like, that doesn't really seem
Uh,
like a common thought. I don't know if it's just me, but it's like, not it doesn't even feel, like, comfortable to do. You can do it, right? But there's just
Yeah,
something
yeah.
different about it. Um, it feels like it was this entire convention is meant only to play, right? It's like
Right,
We
but
want
but
they want
also
it in everyone's hands.
sales of that
Will
product.
go up, obviously,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
Um,
it's definitely different, definitely different. It's got a
I
vibe
would say,
to
I
it.
mean, the number of kids is incredibly higher.
Well, yeah, so I think that comes culturally from how gaming is really a much more family-oriented thing, over there where, here we use a lot of board games early on in child development and child education and just play. But then eventually our kids in North America kind of fall out of that and do other things. And it's not that kids in Germany and whatnot don't do that, but they still sort of keep that sort of familial unit playing games. And because the games exist that can support both children and adults at the same time in that language, and then they just graduate into, more mature games and more mature games, and then some immature games as well, and that's fine. But I don't think we have those games in our culture until, the last maybe 20 years, right?
Right, because I was gonna say, I think that's going to be a major difference that we're gonna keep seeing is I think for the longest time, it was gamers just sort of introducing their kids to games, but there's been enough time where if you said to somebody that you board game, isn't just the classic, like, oh, you mean like Monopoly. Now people will say things like, oh, do you mean like Exploding Kittens? Or do you
Right.
mean like a
Catan
Ticket to
or
Ride
yeah.
or something like there's new vocabulary that's officially solidified itself
Mhm.
that, if, taking a few of the trends that I definitely saw on the floor there, it would imply like to be honest, more and more group and family gaming in the
Mhm.
future because I feel like more it's not just the German publishers, right? Like if you look at almost across the board what a lot of people had demoing or on display or they were, kind of pushing and we can talk about some of those trends for sure. They're super either accessible, light, whatever it is, something that it's okay. So here's a good example. And then we've seen this trend here a lot, but it's definitely continuing. The idea of these very, very nature-based games because
Mhm.
people are not intimidated by them. Now, I will say there was definitely a few of them that you're like, why was this
A nature
theme?
theme, yeah.
There was one I played where, I think it was a really clean, mechanic, and I'll get into again why I think this is really, really accessible, but it was kinda like one of those moments of, "Why is this mushrooms?" Like,
Because mushrooms are
it's
cool.
so meaningless, but it just goes to show that these very light, friendly, and non-complicated seeming themes are
Yep.
being applied to things because then you also have to think, well, then that tells you exactly who they're intended for.
Yeah, and they're non-divisive themes. It's like these are
Exactly.
meant to be approachable, right? That
So
word, that
what was
magic
it?
A word.
What was it?
Oh, you're looking at your
Wonder
notes? She has
Woods.
notes.
Yeah, no, I gotta remember these things. Blue Orange, I think it was Blue Orange had it. It was Wonder Woods,
Okay.
and it was a really simple, like honestly, a really simple mechanic of trying to max out collecting these little wooden mushrooms, right? But you're also trying to push your luck in that each of the mushrooms is going to have an assigned value of either 1, 3, 5, or 7 and you're trying to use what little information you know to figure out which one is which. So you want to try to invest in the mushroom that's hopefully 5 and 7. So
Okay.
again, a really, really simple mechanic on top of it. Why it's mushrooms, who the hell knows? But at the same time, it was a good example of two major trends that I would say I saw. One we've seen here quite a lot, and it's definitely picking up. I mean, the fact that, and I'm sorry to everybody whose the games these are, but they're starting to all blend together, where it's like the verdant and the planted and the I
Mhm.
don't know how many different games have mountains and trails in them, and they all look the
Parks
same.
and yeah.
Like they all look the same at this point, guys. I'm really sorry, but at the same time, there's more and more of them.
Yeah. And you
There's
know
more of
what?
them coming.
I'll actually take a lot of the nature stuff over the stoic angry white dude
Oh,
faces.
for sure. I'm not even complaining because what it
Yeah, but it's
ultimately
just
says
they
is for
all
me,
are
it's all
getting kind of
blending.
samey.
But what
Right.
it really is saying is this is who's getting attracted to these games, right? Like, think about who's attracted to these types of theming,
Yeah, yeah. They're
right?
more universal for sure.
I think that is huge because
Oh,
that
yeah.
starts
Oh,
to
yeah.
really blend that idea of that like accessibility, that gateway, that intro. Like, what is that game that kind of can be those multi audiences?
Mhm.
There is definitely between the two trends of that clean singular mechanic and that lighter, kind of more accessible to everyman theme.
Right.
Both suggest more and more people that it's like they're trying to attract to gaming.
Yeah, it's interesting because in, like, film, we'd call that, like, a four-quadrant movie that appeals to, like, this group and that the 4 different demographics of movie watchers, and it sounds like that's what we're looking at in gaming now as well, is that the money really is in the games that appeal to kinda anybody, right?
What's the mass audience,
Right. Right,
right?
and even if it's not a mass
And I
level
don't mean a mass
game,
market
yeah,
game.
but what's the
Which one
what's
can
the
get both?
audience? What can get all of the audience? Um, you know, and it's really interesting. So, right, so actually, it's funny. So, Amy asks, Erica, do you see yourself attending every year?
Uh, I think what was really there was a few good benefits to it. Like, there's still some part of me that felt like, "Oh, I'm in the middle of Germany. This should be really, like, cool." And it's just kinda like you're just at another convention in some random European city that looks like some random European city. So, sorry, Essen. Um, but what was really neat is the access to publishers we don't see. So,
Right.
I would say particularly between the German and the Asian markets. Because in Canada, we actually have quite a lot of access to the French in particular. We do have a fair amount of access to German because of especially companies that do multi language. We tend to get them first because we don't really care how many languages are in the box.
We're
So it's
u we're
just one
used
of
to having, like, extra rules in our
yeah, we
box.
don't care. Throw some extra in there. It can be as many languages as you want. So we tend to get the imports pretty quickly. So then what I'm looking for is what are the companies that we would never get to see. And I
Yeah.
think there's something really interesting about that in particular that I don't know where else you'd get that. And so it not that that's a huge value to everybody, but I thought that was particularly interesting
Well, I would think, in your role and your job and
and
the
more
company that you work for, I mean, like, that would be a good thing for you to go to
well,
quite a few
so then
times.
I was actively looking for games that would be either licensing or localizing. So the idea
Right.
is that this game only exists in Germany or Brazil or Korea or wherever it uh, is there a chance that there can now be either an English version or is there a chance it could now be a Disney version
Yeah, a
or
Marvel
a
version or something that you have to license an
exactly.
IP for, yeah.
And so I will say that some of the business I was doing was specifically that,
Right?
looking to see what games we could be bringing over because there was a lot of games where that would be it was their debut. So it was the first
Mhm.
time, it came out in whatever language that was. And so this was
Yeah.
a chance to see that.
It is like a coming out party for a lot of the small publishers, right? It is like, really, this is the first product we have in the world, and a place like Essen is a great place because it is kind of the nexus of all things for gaming.
It's pretty
Uh,
central, yeah.
yeah, yeah, where you can get all those language partners you need in order to make your print run shoot up to where your cost goes down, and now you have a competitive pricing. And then if you get the eyes of somebody like, Hasbro or Spin on you, now you're like, oh, this could be much bigger, orders of magnitude larger, right? So very cool. Tim Eisner says, yay for nature games. Tim is
I
currently
think it's gonna
kickstarting
keep
Leaf.
chugging.
Yeah,
I
keep chugging
seriously
on
think
those.
it's gonna keep chugging because let's be honest, I mean, there's something once upon a time, I think that they would have been seen as kids' games, but they're not because that would have been deceptive. What's
Right.
really cool is that it's already implied you can do this, and that is gonna be so important to gaming.
Right. And hello to Andrew Wolf, who also was in Essen and had he was on another podcast or something. He's on Michaels and Katja's about his Essen experience. So you can go check theirs out and see what Andrew has to say. Andrew's been over in Europe a lot this year. David Killing from Toronto, Sean M from Edmonton, Adam Young from Sarnia. Adam is sad that the last time he was in Essen, he was there for a very different sort of festival, electronic music, and didn't get to participate in the gaming stuff. So yeah, definitely look at the things that were the timeless, because he too has had enough of the angry guy game of the month.
I'll be fair, like, okay, so there was ones I was interested in, but do I need to bring this home now? Do you know what I mean? Or do I need this game right now? And there is a bunch of things like that where I was like, as I said, I really wanted to find out, what was the Chinese publisher doing? What was the Korean publisher doing? What was the Japanese publisher doing? Because, like, Woodcraft, like the things on my list that I didn't pick up was like Woodcraft, Starship Captains, Lacrimosa, Tribes of the Wind, 12 Rivers, Joan of Arc, Clockworker. I was very on the fence about. Dwarf ran out, to be fair. One of them is going to be a Kickstarter, so I still have a chance.
Yeah, so
but
those are a
most
lot
of
of
these
titles that there is some buzz around, but they're going to come over.
But do I need to bring them home with me?
You need
when
to
it's
be a
like,
mule for those
I could
companies.
pre-order them right now from the comfort of my own computer. And so I did consciously make that effort. I will say that yes, there's ones I wanted to play. For example, I wanted to play Flamecraft because mine should be arriving any day.
I have mine. It's very cool.
I'm still waiting for mine. I'm like, where is it? Anyway.
Because Peter likes me more.
Oh, sure. I just want mine. So, but at the same time, it's like, because I know that is a possibility, I will be playing that. Like that is, not far.
Oh
in the
yeah, and it
future.
sold out real fast too. So
Yeah. So I wasn't worried about stuff like that because I've either have it or can get it very easily. So then my question was, I was looking like, who do I not know?
Awesome. That's perfect, right? That's what you
Right.
want to do at a place like that,
So
especially
my
when you
list,
are really in the industry.
well, that's it. So some of the stuff I play was pretty wacky. I will be fully obvious, like, because if you want to see any of the stuff I just listed, somebody probably recorded themselves, playing most of the ones I listed. Like another one I was really kind of excited to see somebody play was the Peter Pan game from Matago.
Oh, right. I haven't actually seen it played.
There's an interesting number of games where you also have to have a very specific player count, and that's going to be a bit of a problem.
I've noticed that. Well, it's very Roberta Fraga.
Well, so I will say, like, okay, I totally bought Deal with the Devil, and that's exactly 4.
Yeah.
That was not the only one, though. There was quite a number of very specific player count games, or I would say in particular, 2-player games that you already know getting reskinned.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely the place to show it and sell it, because that's probably going to be your biggest sale day for that particular thing. And if it can get enough buzz and generate enough buzz, maybe it'll sell to other people. But games that require very specific player counts have to give you a very specific and very good experience every time out of the box. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult.
They're going to be hard to play. Some of these ones,
yeah,
some of the stuff that's coming out right now is a very, very specific experience. It will be hard to get to the table.
But that experience should be...
You hope. So we'll have to find out. Right?
Connor Alexander says, great to see your mugs as always. That's us, our mugs. Adam, I think saying,
well, unless he meant my actual like Starbucks mugs.
Maybe. Where are those?
Well, they're upstairs probably.
I know they're not behind you, so I'm not sure how you're seeing them.
Well, because
unless he's in your house right now.
No, because I posted a picture of them.
Oh, so you're thinking maybe he's like, it's a little bit of a double entendre. Adam Young says, I imagine our buying temptations would be different if shipping woes were not so difficult still. There's still some, I need to secure this for some of them. I know like Benita, took some in her luggage and then like had to ship like 3 or 4 boxes back home, which are going to take like a month to get back to her. So it's just interesting how people will do that for games.
She threw it back in with the Arcane Wonder.
Yeah.
And that's the question is like for some of them, so her and we were having a back and forth for the Joan of Arc one is because
look out, Connor's right behind you.
The Joan of Arc one, I think, is really, really cool. And if you want it right now, you had to get it right now,
Yeah.
or it's
Or
4
wait.
months from now.
Yeah.
But it's one of the two. And it was like, okay, but am I going to play it in that 4 months? And
And
that
do you
was
have
the
room
major
for
thing.
it and all sorts of stuff,
I
right?
probably had a little bit of room. I was lucky. My second bag. So I nested once. Here's some. So okay, here we go.
Oh,
Here's
some
some
tips.
tips
Tips and
for like
tricks.
some tricks. Um, because a lot of international flights, you have up to 1 to 2 pieces of luggage included in your ticket. So, plus what your second piece of luggage to pay for is usually $50. You can't beat that for shipping, by the way. What I did is I took my largest family suitcase and actually stuck my second suitcase inside of it with all my clothing, like a nesting doll. That way,
Right.
when I got there, like I was only towing around for the first bit what looked like one suitcase because they were inside of each other.
You know, magic suitcase inside another suitcase.
When I got to Essen, I break them apart. The smaller
Damn.
suitcase is still my clothes. The big suitcase is now completely empty and can take a ton of
Magic.
games.
There you go.
And again, your second suitcase is probably only going to cost you like, let's say $50 rather than whatever the hell shipping was going to be.
Oh, it's expensive. Ben Osteen says that he almost pre-ordered most of the titles you listed just today.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Like you're going to get them anyway.
Yeah.
So
At some point. I gotta tell you, these
pull tabs,
Pokemon, yeah, the pull tabs on the cute all Pokemon things remind me of like
the fruit cups.
yes, that is exactly what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of like Del Monte fruit cups. That is exactly what this feels like. A Del Monte fruit cup in my mouth. Okay, so I'm gonna drink my Igglybuff.
It should hopefully be peachy goodness.
Oh, the smell of peach is really strong,
Yeah.
which means to me that it's extra strong because I have really bad smell. Not like I smell, but my sense of
I know
smell is
what
really
you
bad.
meant.
Also, my sense of
Okay.
taste is
Oh,
really bad.
so
But it's
I was thinking about more tips and tricks for people that I realized I was like, some of these, I was like, crap, I should be doing this at regular cons.
Yeah, right?
Okay. Number one, schedule time to actually meet people on the floor to play a game. So it's one of the things you can do at Essen. I'm sure you can do it at other things too. It's like, honestly, we should probably do this more often. Not only are you guaranteed to see that person, okay, you're guaranteed to play the game you wanted to play, but you actually got to see something like experience on the con floor. Like otherwise, we never play games, in all honesty, right?
Yeah.
I was like, why did this never occur to me before?
Yeah, because a lot of our meetings actually take place around alcohol, which is not great, or food.
Or even if you're running back and forth, what's the difference in scheduling, let's say, an hour in between things where you know you're going to meet at a booth with 1 or 2 people that you wanted to meet up with anyway,
Mhm.
right? And actually play a game. Because
Yeah.
I got to run into random people and play stuff. I'm like, I never get to do this, but I
And
should
you
have
get to play a
scheduled a
game.
few more of these.
Right. So, I mean, Erica, you're in slightly different position, and so am I, where we don't have to pitch to anybody if we don't want to get our
In
games to where
between.
they need
I'm
to be,
saying
right?
in between. You could
But
pitch
yeah,
for half a day.
I still think this is wonderful. Like I would still play a game with I don't know whoever and tell them about the work that I was doing for them as we were playing. I think that'd be totally fine.
I think there should be more excuses where it's like that is a great excuse
Yeah,
to
to get
see
together, play
people, but
games.
it could be networking too. Like maybe you're meeting up with for example, a lot of our media friends, they have to play a certain number of games.
Right.
Maybe that is
That's
an
why they're
excuse to
there.
go play with them,
Yeah.
right? Because be fair, as a designer, it's kind of your job also to know what's out there,
Oh, totally.
right? So that it might sound like I feel very, very privileged that I got to even play games. But part of why I do it is it's also my job to be like, oh, did you know that these 5 people all have essentially the same game coming out? And they're all doing it. Like literally,
Yeah.
that's my job half the time is to be like, well, that already exists, or that is that version of that, or oh, like
Yeah.
I'll
You
just
got to
be
stay
fair.
up with the times, Erica.
It's
Just so
part of it. It's
you
a big
guys
part of it.
don't get caught in like doing something that everybody else is doing, right? That'd be a bad use of
Or
spin
to be
money.
fair, we get pitched stuff, and I think sometimes people don't realize that I know exactly what game they are.
Right. And that, oh, wait a minute, that's already, there's already a European and a South American license for that. And if we can't get worldwide, we won't do it or we don't want it,
Yeah,
right?
or just
It's not
interesting
worth it
stuff
for
like
us,
that.
right? Yeah. Lots of stuff.
Oh, okay, a
Yes.
couple more things
Another
that you
another
didn't know.
tips.
For example, no one seems to know this one, and I was like fascinated by it. There's a giant ass toy store in Essen. So, why I say this? Okay. Number one, we all know that a lot of games that are on a con floor are actually available in other locations because it might not be the first time that they're out. This is particularly true if you're looking into the kids or family category. What you might not realize is that game is already available at, they have like Smiths and stuff like that still exists there. It might already be there. And so that game that was $25 or $25, 25 euro on the con floor is $14.99 at Smith's. Okay.
Hmm.
And they have the biggest gaming aisle you've ever seen because it's family friendly and accessible. So go to the toy store, not just the Essen floor, because they have huge, huge aisles of games. They have stuff that is, again, this is, not if you're going for like half the list I listed as I didn't pick up, that's not going to be here. Same way you wouldn't find that stuff if you were going to like Target or Walmart or something. And I'm not saying that there isn't exactly Target and Walmart, but it's a ton of stuff, and it's a ton of
Right.
stuff at a price that is, you could fill your bag for that.
Yeah. And the other thing is that you can probably get, games that, you can't get easily in America, but they're there from like last
They're there.
session, right? Last
And a
year.
lot of them are multilingual
Right.
because they already produce that way, right? Like they usually typically I've noticed have 3 plus languages in them
Hmm. Hmm.
unless they're like brand new.
Yeah. It's
So
often like German, English, and then one other language, like whether it's Spanish or Dutch or whatever.
or I promise you there's an English version online somewhere.
Mhm.
If you're willing to be like, "Hey, that just saved me like 10 euro and
That's
I
a
can
lot of
buy now
euros.
2 games," right? So there are some really good workarounds because I don't think anybody knew that this toy store was there. And it wasn't far, folks. It was not at all far.
All right.
Um,
What's your next tip? We've got
okay,
like
what
we've got pack an
else?
extra bag. We've got go to the toy store.
Yeah. Oh, this is just a good one for most people. They didn't know this. There was like a huge Asian food market across the road from the main train station because a lot of people they were like, "Well, where do you find food?" And it's impossible to find whatnot. I'm like, just stumbled the same way I stumbled on a giant toy store that I swear to God is walking distance. People,
Yeah,
there
sometimes
is
it's
a
good to just leave the con.
there is a giant Asian market right across the road from the main Essen train station that has all the foods you could want and
Now
all your snacks.
you did tell me there's a little bit of a weird thing that happened in that Asian market. Was this the place where they
Oh, no, no, that was an Asian fusion dinner, though.
oh, okay. Where they replaced noodles with spaghetti.
Yeah, they replaced noodles with spaghetti. That was just fascinating. They really like their meat there, guys. Lots of meat and potatoes. They don't drink water, which is fascinating. Like if you ask for water, it's this big. And
Oh, I'll need
um
10 of those.
yeah, we actually had that conversation, many a waitress, where it'd be like, "Can we have like 4 bottles of water?" It's like, "Are you sure? Like, don't you want like 2?" We're like, "No, we want 4."
Wow.
Well, it's either water this big or beer this big.
I'm good with the water, thanks.
So we ordered a lot of water. It was very dehydrating, very dehydrating. I love mineral water. If anyone's seen me, like I drink a ton of club soda, but it's too. I actually need like legit water to like
Real
flush my
water.
organs with.
So, and this is like completely the opposite of like American cons and Canadian cons where there's always water. Like it's just
Mhm.
water all over the place. And like sometimes it's water with like little fruit bits in it. Sometimes it's water with a cucumber in it, which is also a fruit, by the
I
way.
bought so much water.
Cucumber water, just like
Well,
Sailor
and there
Jupiter.
wasn't really places to fill water. So that is a big heads up. Is there's not like a lot of water filling stations. Most Europeans carry around a bottle opener and just buy stuff to drink.
Hmm.
So and then
So
that's
carry a bottle
isn't
opener, I guess.
and that's yeah, bring a bottle opener. But that was another interesting one because technically all of their bottles are depositable, but they don't actually recycle. Like they don't have sorting bins. So you're going to see people going through garbage cans everywhere, including the airport,
To
because
clear out
all
the
of that
bottles.
stuff is deposit. Yeah,
Yeah.
but they don't sort.
So weird. So very weird.
There's a lot of little weird off things. So like heads up
Yeah.
moments of just know that this is a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure we just end up you'll end up filling a lot from just like the tap because the water
Right.
there's fine. But I don't know why nobody drinks water.
We'd rather
I
have
need
beer.
water with all that beef,
They have
guys.
Hopsy water. Ben Osteen is saying that Next Station London's rulebook used more paper than the paper pad used for the game because of all the languages that were
That can
included in there.
happen. That can happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And Andrew Wolf is saying that despite the fact there's lots of glass bottles, there's a lot less single-use plastic, which is probably a good thing.
I don't know if there actually was, because there was just as equally likely the water bottles were one or the other. Just
Yeah.
every other drink came in glass.
Adam Young is saying beer was actually cheaper than water when he lived in
It
Europe.
can be. So let's say it was like, yeah, do you want to pay €4 for a bottle of water? Or you want to pay €4 for a big thing of beer?
Yeah, so per volume, right? And like compared to what we pay for all that stuff here in America and Canada. What are the next events for us? Well, that's a good question. I didn't get to go to Shucks, which is very sad.
I am
Um,
sorry.
it's all right. Uh, and I can't go to PAX U because that's in the middle of, I don't know, school. So it's probably not to 2023, unfortunately, and it'll probably be the Gathering first. That's usually my first big con anyway. Winter's not great for traveling, so for Canada.
That
Uh,
sucks.
Erica, what are you doing next? Are you actually going to a con in the near future or no? I don't think you are, but maybe?
Let's see. I'm going back to New York in 2 weeks, but that's work. Then I
Yeah.
actually get to do a family vacation thing at the beginning of November.
Oh, that's
I'm
nice.
looking at maybe going to PAX just because I can tag it on the end of like
Yeah,
if I go
business
to
trip.
work for a
Yeah,
week,
yeah.
it's like why not go straight to, like from New York to Philly and then back
And
home?
then back to Toronto, yeah. Do a
Yeah,
little
so
triangulation.
I'm looking at that because it's like that would actually be really easy.
Yeah. And I think PAX U is a really neat event because it kind of bridges that gap between gamers of all sorts, which is cool, right? And we might get some learn-ins from interacting with different people. Um, and Connor's saying that he's going to PAX U, and he wants to schedule game time together with people at PAX U. So there you go.
Yeah,
Amy's saying that
I
it'll be
never
her
really
first time
thought about
going.
it, but we should just start doing this.
Yeah.
Like, have them, even if it was like, if you think about it, even if you did it once a day, you would have
Mhm.
played 4 games and you probably would have ended up seeing a minimum of 9 people.
Yeah. Like I schedule one RPG every con that I go to where I game master or for like a bunch of people.
Mhm.
And they're all like industry friends who we never game together otherwise. And it's always after the floor closes because they're all in booths and stuck in those
Well, and
booths.
that's always the problem, right?
Yeah, at American cons for sure. At the other cons in Europe and other places, you might have more luck because they might have a bigger they might have a bigger presence. They might have more staff. It all depends, right? But still, I think scheduling stuff is really important because then, yeah, you're right. It's like it's on our schedule. We are going to game, and that's an important thing.
I
Um,
never really thought about it before too. I was like,
yeah, it's so
wow.
funny. Yeah, why don't we do this? Hey, so of the stack behind you, can you tell us a little bit about each of these games and why you wasted your valuable space on that particular game?
Mhm. All right.
Invested, spent. I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna
Not
show you
really a
some of the
waste.
fun ones in particular because these are the ones that came from like Asia.
All right, I'm gonna
So
put you on solo so it can be bigger.
hold on. So I stumbled on this really neat, somewhat more traditional Korean game first. I think in English it translates as touch it. So let's just go with that for now. They had multiple options of what this would look like, but what I liked is the rethinking of how a card was being used. So the way that this game works is that you actually have to hold it from the sides because there's 4 potential objects. One of them is on the back, but it's actually embossed. So right now you're seeing this little dumpling, but when I'm running my finger over it, I can feel the dumpling.
Oh, I love
And
it.
so this game is actually designed around the idea of a tactile card. How
Right.
can I translate that image through touch? Right? And so very simple idea. But what I was looking for is I'm looking for things that give that simple idea, because imagine what this can now become.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, this is just a delivery method. And so this is the type of stuff that
It's a
I look
vector
for.
for information.
There you go. And this is the stuff that I look for, because to me, this is just one way of translating a type of experience.
Right.
So then what would be another way of doing something like that? Right? All right. So
Very cool. Very cool.
that was a Korean game.
Called Touch It, perhaps.
Yeah. Or actually was this, oh no, this one actually is Chinese. Sorry, not Korean, Chinese. Okay. This one did something a little different. I thought was really neat. This one is okay here. Sorry. This one is Chinese as well, from Broadview or Broadway Games. And what was also kind of compelling about this one, first off, is you can already see kind of the art style they were pulling from.
Right. So
And
they're
so I
going with
will,
that rubber hose arms kind of
yeah,
feel.
almost like the release, the classic, like studio animation style, because
Mm-hmm.
studio animation is actually part of the theme of this game. So ultimately, this is a drawing game. But what's really neat about this game is that it plays with the idea of animation cells. And
Oh,
what you're
cool.
actually doing is you take your drawing and you split it between 3 cells.
Oh,
Okay. So my completed drawing would go across these 3, and one of these parts will be removed. Then what we do is we put them in the middle, and when everybody's ready, you can just flip them over, because you can see whatever was drawn.
okay.
So what I look at for this, again, is an interesting idea of it, like, again, a delivery method.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there are plenty of drawing games out there, but what this one rethought is not only how these things get overlapped, but even just from a thematic, what a neat
Mm-hmm.
idea of an animation cell, since you are actively drawing, and it even comes with like
Backgrounds.
backgrounds and like other
That's cute.
levels,
That's cute.
layers of what this game can be.
Yeah.
Right. So, not super crazy or different,
No, and not
but
actually that expensive, really.
but a rethink. And so this
Mm-hmm.
is what I'm always looking for when people are doing something. It's like, what was that little bit of different that you went with? How did you position that instead, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that, I would say that there was definitely a theme running with a lot of like the Asian ones in particular, where it was even, could the box be something? Was the
Oh, cool.
box part of the game? And so
Mm-hmm.
there was this series from Korea Games in particular, where the entire box unfolded into like a big magnetic L shape for an entire series of games. And each one used that in a different
Hmm.
way. One of them even folded and could allow you to be like a phone, like a phone holder, to amplify as like for sound.
Oh, very cool. So
Okay.
you
And
get an
these were
app and
just
because you can make
little magnetic boxes.
an amplification unit out of a hollow box, right?
And so that was just thinking about, well, you know, your box when you are designing a game is a third of your components. And half the time, what is it? Like, we were
Yeah, and
talking to
it's
Jay
literally manufacturing wise is typically the most expensive piece
because
in
it
your
doesn't do
game,
anything
and
other
it's
than
and
hold
it's
it.
friggin' huge. It's huge, right?
Imagine
If
that
it
was part of
could,
the game.
yeah.
And so I say this because this is something that I've been working a lot more on, but I genuinely believe I'm seeing it happening more and more too. So it can't just be me.
Yeah.
Is, what do you do with that third of your components that isn't really being utilized?
Mhm. I mean, I think that even using it as something like during the game to reset or to like tear down during the game, put stuff back in the box is at least one way to use a box in a way that's better than it just sitting there. But then,
Mhm.
people have been using it for their dice tower, like in Harrow County, or all the stuff that you're talking about with a unfoldable box that then refolds and transforms into a component that is useful. I think that's wonderful. You're gonna have to go through each of these on video sometime. Um, what else did you see there?
I liked what this was doing. Now, I think there's going to be more ways of doing this, but I can see this resonating and gapping between that card game, video game market. So
Cool.
this one is Soviet Kitchen,
Okay.
and this one is
In
actually
Soviet
driven.
Russia, kitchen cooked you.
Well, literally, you're cooking toxic food. You're just hoping it's not so
Oh my
toxic it's going to
gosh.
kill somebody. Um, these cards are scanned in though by QR, and what you're actually doing is you're working together to try to make the food as close to the color as possible by scanning in the cards that you have. So really, you're making like color mixing, but you're
Oh,
doing
okay.
it by it's like a card. It's like if a card in an app game had a baby.
Yeah.
And so, is this the greatest method ever? Not necessarily, but is the thinking behind it really clever? Because I think
Hmm.
that there's way more space to play with here. Yes.
Yeah, and could it do something more interesting, or could it be done in a cleaner way? Or QR codes are ugly. Like let's just
Yeah,
state the
it looks like
obvious.
this, just for
Yeah,
example. But it
it's
doesn't have to be that.
no, no, it doesn't.
Okay. And then what it's doing is, I mean, it's all about this color mixing by like literally like the cards you're scanning, they're being ground and blend together to make new colors, right? And you're
Hmm.
trying to make it as close to that color as possible. That's why I say ultimately it feels very much like an app game, but it's an app game that is now has a tactileness,
Hmm.
right? And I think that just purely from what it is as a genre needs to be like seriously explored.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna just put a quick pitch out there for. I'm gonna show my face. Well, I'll show all of our faces. Well, I'll show none of our faces. There. Um, for GDC of next March 2023, we are looking for more talks. So if you have any talk that you'd like to give, specifically, we are definitely looking for more people in the RPG field because we typically didn't have RPG spokespeople. And now that Banana and I are on the GGC tabletop um, committee, I guess. We are trying to get more people from the RPG side of things, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, collaring Alexander, to come do talks for GDC in San Francisco of March 2023. So if you are interested in that, just reach out to me and I'll get you the link for the late entries. Our deadline was like last Friday or something, but we have an extension period for late entries, and we'd love to see more in the RPGs. So if you're out there listening and you make RPGs and you have something to say, please let me know and reach out to me and we'll get you all hooked up. All right, back to the games.
All right. So, what I was looking for was, as I said, things that are brand new. So, they won't exist in other languages yet. And looking for those family friendly experiences. Because, as we said, those are one of the hardest things to find that are fun. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, one of the fun little discoveries we stumbled on, and fingers crossed, we may be trying to pick it up, but just didn't say that out loud. Was this one, which I think translates to Hotel Ghost Scare,
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah,
Okay,
Geisterschreck. I got it. Yeah.
so this fundamentally is actually based off of hide and seek.
Sure.
This is a hide and seek game.
Yeah, yeah.
What it's doing is that this is a clever way of rethinking a board through visual space. And it's doing that through 3D furniture, which I really wish wasn't this oppressive purple
Why is
because
it purple?
I don't know. It looks very weird set up because it's very fun. These guys look honestly like jelly candies when you set them up, and the board
Right.
is very well designed and colorful. That these just look very blocky on it. So I don't know who made these purple, but it's a little odd. But what's really clever about this game is that you are these little ghosts trying to race across from one side of a board to another, and you have to
Right.
be on the board for at least one round before you can get across. You can hide on the furniture, under the furniture, in the furniture, you
In the
name it.
furniture.
Yes, so for example, there's a little like food cart here. There's a hole you can climb in and things like that. The mirror actually reflects, so you can line it up and like try. Okay, so the reason is that once the round is done, one of the players is going to be looking through this keyhole and will be kind of helping place it. Any of the ghosts that can be seen through the keyhole kind of have to poof and get like start again, which is why hiding in the furniture is really funny. But what's really funny too is you can move the furniture while people are hiding in it. You can also reposition things to try to bounce them. So even this is a kid's game, when you start to figure out how much manipulation you can do, you're like, at first we're like, wait, are we breaking in the game? And then it's like, no, 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 we're not. This is built in. This is really, really, this is clever.
Mhm.
Right? And looking for those layers. There was a ton of ghost themed games, by the way, guys.
Well,
Like I
there's a
think
reason. There's a reason.
in
It
Europe in particular,
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
It doesn't translate to the rest of the world though.
Oh, I
I
know.
love ghost themed games, but it does not translate to most in North America or
Yeah.
Asia.
So yeah, definitely not Asia. We have this thing about ghosts.
They
In
have very
fact, you
different
cannot
ghosts,
have them
guys.
In China. It's actually illegal, for some reason. But the the um the big thing in especially like European and especially German for some reason is ghosts and knights are like our equivalent of cops and robbers slash
Yeah.
cowboys and Indians, right?
Yeah, they like pirates a lot too, but ghosts is a
Yeah.
big thing for ghosts.
Yep. They love
Um
their ghosts.
Yeah, overall, like if you're noticing a theme, what I was looking for and what there definitely was more of besides the earlier accessibility talk, because a lot of the stack really is very friendly, right? Like
Yeah.
there was so many games being demoed by very large publishers where most of the games they were demoing were super accessible.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of the publishers are like, you know, core hobbyists are, that's where my heart is, but I got to look to where the money is. If I want to survive, you got
Well,
to
what if
go to
you want
where
to
the
play
money
with a
is.
bigger group or your
Yeah.
family or like,
And I
you
think
know,
most big companies that start in hobby eventually kind of edge their way out. Or not most, but a lot of them do edge their
you
way out
gotta
into like
diversify if you can.
more. Yeah. Yeah.
But clever component use is definitely on the rise. And
Oh yeah.
it's that positive use of the word gimmick. Now,
Hmm.
ultimately, there's so many more games coming out all the time. How the games almost have to be their own commercials. Like, the back of the box has to sell the game, right? I think that's really what we're seeing more and more coming through is why do we need to rethink how the box is being used? Why do we really need to think about, you know, how these mechanics like is it enough to roll a die or could you find a way of for example like this one is like a weighted tips so it'll drop out different denominations of dice and like cubes. So do I just roll that or do I now I have a fun little mechanic, that
You
might
have a fun little
randomize it for
mechanic.
me because that could sell the game.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. And because honestly, maybe I've already rolled that dice in a bajillion other games. What else you
Yeah.
got for me?
Right.
Right. So it goes twofold why I think a lot of these gimmicks are on the rise is number one, I already have a bajillion games on my shelf. Why am I going to buy your game? Because I didn't see that before. But the other thing is, as someone who doesn't play a lot of games, why are you going to get my money? Because that looks really cool,
Hmm. People like doing cool things.
right? Like, oh, it does it that's neat. It does whatever it is it's doing. You know what I mean? Like that's why I say something
Well, I
as
mean,
simple
even
as
something like Pie Face, right? Pie Face sold bazillion copies because it was doing something that was different and interesting to some people, right?
yeah,
It's just Russian roulette, but
yeah.
non-lethal.
That's the thing, right? It's
It's just
like
as if everybody has a gun.
yeah, I mean,
Instead.
it's like I'm not saying do. I mean, I'm not personally a fan of taking something people do for free and making them pay for it. But what I mean is more, you need a hook these days, and that hook
Mhm.
needs to be essential to the game, though.
Yeah,
So considering like we're going to go round and round and roundabout of how you use these very basic mechanics, where you're going to really, really see differences then is well, what is the new way of doing that?
right. And I think you'll find like companies like Restoration Games are doing a great job of using because that's all they do is they go back into the back catalogs of all these games that had really cool hooks for the time, really cool mechanical
The
hooks for the time,
component thing.
and they bring them back and they redo the rules so they're cleaner and better. And so you'll see games like the Dark Tower coming back. You'll see Fireball Island coming back. You'll see Stop Thief coming back, where these are all mechanically, strong, hooky style, table presence style games.
And you infer
Yeah,
almost immediately what to do with them. So here's the thing, like, I like euros, right? But if I look at a euro on a table, I mean, it is purely coming from the fact that I have foundational knowledge of euros,
yeah, you
that
got
I
that
can just
literacy,
infer
right?
what the hell is happening on that table. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of stuff. That's a lot of euros when you lay them out. It's just a bunch of stuff. What you a lot of people miss the value of these, as we said, these centralized gimmicks, is that they instantly tell the player what the game is.
Right. It's funny.
Um,
Ben Osteen is mentioning one called Polterfast, which we played a ton of at the gathering with Andreas, German Jesus. Uh, do you remember German Jesus? And in the game Polterfast, you roll barrels as dice, kind of, and only the ones that stand on their end actually count. And that
mhm.
that little twist is like all you need to know about the game, and it just makes it like extra funny and extra lucky. And oh, it fell, and oh, it stood up, and um, but the inherent nature of barrels makes you think, oh yeah, the ones that stand up are the ones that count. That makes you realize it just
You
inherently
just
through
already know
looking
some of
at
the
it.
rules before you even
Yeah,
read it.
yeah, love it.
And that's kind of the core of a really good gimmick, is
Mhm.
that it translates a lot of rules super fast.
Yeah.
Because we look at gimmick as a bad thing, but I'm looking at it more as, think of it like
Maybe we
the
need a new word.
tangible mechanic.
That's not a good one.
No.
We'll think of a new one. That's our next goal, is to think of a new name for that. Um, cool. What else is in your pile? I'm interested in, like, all of those games. What else is
Uh
cool?
Let's see. I mean, a lot of people are very excited about continuing down the dual line. So
Yeah,
there was
yeah.
like the all the different dual versions. So
Mhm.
it's a cleaner version. They're still doing all the same, still has all of the token, or sorry, the clay chippy
Right, that's Splendor
like,
Duel that you're
it's Splendor
touching, right?
Duel.
Yeah.
Um haven't tried
Why'd you
them
get
yet.
that? Why no, why did you get that? That's an interesting question, because you said all the rest of the pile, or so much so, is, like,
Oh, okay.
games that you couldn't get early and
Partly because I had
games
to
that
line
have
up
new
for it.
things. Oh,
Okay.
so, they forced me to line up for it, therefore I have to buy
Well,
something.
it's okay. So Mike B really wanted it.
Oh,
And
okay.
we found out which of the Asmodee booths had it. So we went to
Oh,
line
also
up.
true, right?
Then he sleeps in and we're like, "Well, you suck. But we're going to get it for you anyway." So we lined up for it, and it was literally the last 3 English copies.
So you might as well
So
get
you
one.
know what? I was just like, "Screw it. I'll just get it now."
Okay, very interesting.
That's how that worked out.
Uh,
Um
Andrew Wolf is saying that he liked Tokaido Duo.
Yeah, there's a lot of there was definitely a lot of two-player version stuff, or things that you already knew, like Patchwork and things like that,
But
having
the
new
two-player or
versions.
the new version or a
There's new
multiplayer
versions, like
version
new skins.
or solos or whatever, right?
The last thing I got that I'm curious about trying is these are both escape room experience boxes,
Right.
but both are designed to almost look like classic board games.
Yeah, they have that look, yeah.
Right? And this one actually, when you bust it out, ends up looking like the inside of like an old sub kind of thing.
Cool.
So what I'm looking at is more like
Like, almost
how
like a
they're
diorama?
yeah, how they're trying to create, like, you see the display in front of you
That's fun. That's
kind of
funky.
thing.
That's
And I
really
think it's
cool.
got like red reveal. It's going super retro, but I want to
Mhm.
see how then they tried to put puzzle
Yeah.
and retro
Now I
together.
have to get them too. Thanks a lot, Erica.
I'll tell you if they're any good. If they suck, then don't
Alright.
worry about it.
Alright.
But then they also had a more monster horror based one.
Yeah.
So
Curse of the Dark.
I've got a small pile of things that I am very excited to play soon. So I'm throwing that in because I'm waiting to play Amelia's Secret
Okay, cool.
is the next one. So I figure those can be right after.
Yeah, just a whole day
And
of, like, escapey games.
Yeah, and these ones, I mean,
Puzzly
I was
games.
just curious. I've never played them before. I liked it's like even though like a collaborative escape room game, like that's how I liked how they're positioning themselves because I think there's gonna be more of that. But
Very
people
cool.
get burned by bad escape rooms, so I'll tell you if they're any good.
Yeah. Very cool. Lots of cool stuff that you've got in that stack. We are coming very close to the end of time. But quickly, can you tell me the best card game you played at Spiel?
Best card game.
Yeah.
You know what turned out to be a lot of fun? I could see pulling out the way, like, you'd have like, llama in your pocket or something
Yep.
like that.
There's a llama in your pocket.
Well, because
I know
that's
the game.
totally a
I'm
thing we would
joking.
do.
I have
There
a
is
tissue
an
copy of cut tissue in every bag that I think I own. So
I mean, I think or, how many people carry around Scout,
right
now is another good
nowadays.
example. I mean, and there was a ton of Scouts still being played as a heads up, like, that's still really big for this year.
Hmm.
Um, there is a new Amigo game called Armadillo.
I already love it. Armadillos are like
It's
my third favorite animal.
it's like a push your luck game more than anything else. Again, the theme is meaningless because it's Amigo. I'm sorry, Amigo, but your themes are dumb. Your card
They
games are
are
great though.
Potato
Um,
Man.
it's essentially a game where you're trying to eliminate your cards. And you're doing it though by rolling combinations of dice. So you're just trying to, it's purely based on mathematical odds,
Hmm.
but there's something
But
really cute about it,
sure,
right?
an armadillo's roll, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Armadillo.
Andrew was saying not challengers. Yeah, I was not okay.
Yeah,
I'm really sorry, guys. I was not the biggest challengers fan,
a lot of
and
people
I
weren't. Well,
won
the
like
3 or 4
six out
people
of
that
the
I've talked to.
7 of the games.
Yeah, I mean
Okay, here's
that
my
doesn't make me
issue with it.
happy. That doesn't make me a fan of a game, right? If I win it all the time.
Well, okay, so is it a good concept? Absolutely. Is it a really nice intro potential to a mechanic? Yes. Does it inherently then have some problems based on maybe the way it's been set up? So to really quickly explain challengers, your goal is always just to have a higher number than the person on the other side. And if you do, you claim the flag. It's kind
Right,
of that simple at the base. The thing is you might have to flip more than one card to beat the other side. And you only have so many basically like burn spots you can fill, right? So if you could force the other person to either fill all their burn spots or run out of cards, you win.
right,
The only strategy you really have any control over is trying to get doubles of cards because if you have a double, they
right,
can sit in the same burn spot.
right. So
Is
it's not really a strategy.
There's no, and this is the problem. Is there other strategies that are baked into the cards? Yes. But is the dex completely random as hell?
Yes.
Yes.
Also yes.
So it's impossible to control any of the strategies, which means if they emerge, it's random.
Yeah,
Yay, if you can lean in.
I can see Andrew not liking that at all.
Well, I think I liked it less than he did, but it
Oh
was one of those
wow.
things where I was like, within the first round, I kind of just said, I'm pretty sure this is the strategy. And then
Okay.
that's all I did. And I won. And that was the end.
Right. So it's like a puzzle that you figured out really quickly. It's like, and then you had to play it more and
But
more
I don't
because
think
the game
that's
dictates that you play it.
I just felt like flip. It's like war.
Ah, I've heard that. Not from you either.
Um, is the best way to put it because either I tie you and I win, or I beat you and I win.
Yeah.
And then you just burn your cards. That
Right.
is the entire game in a nutshell.
Okay. All right. I just know that some people are very hype about it, so I'm interested to hear the opposite side as well.
Would I play it again? Sure. Did I want to like it? Sure. Do I think unfortunately I think it might end up being really, really flat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew's saying similar, like he didn't hate it, but Erica's right about the mechanics kind of constraining the gameplay. Yeah, it sounds like it has a very limited depth of play,
I
and you can
love that it could have
replay.
been so introductory on so many levels
Yeah,
to like a deck builder and it's got a lot of that flair, but I think it got caught in its own issues of deck building.
right. Got it. Okay, so what was the best board game you saw? We're gonna go overtime, just so you know. What was the best board game you
That's a
saw?
tough one. There's so many pretty games out there right now, guys. Can I say that right? Like there's and heavy components. There's some really heavy component
Like
games
heavy, like
too.
as in weight?
Oh yeah.
Like, heavier
Let's
than the
see
Dark
here.
Tower
No, that's its own
thing.
craziness. Let's see here.
She has a
I'm trying
list.
to
That is
think.
what she's looking at,
Yeah,
everybody.
I
There's a whole
literally
list.
am. I literally am. I'm trying to think of like which really big board game. Like I had a bunch I wanted to try, but to be honest, the ones I would consider like not just like family or like kids
Yeah, yeah,
games,
yeah.
I didn't have the time to play.
Because
And
they're
they're like
longer, right?
they're the ones I would have sat down and it's like I want like for example,
I
I
need an
really
hour
want to
and a
play
half.
Deal. I want to play Deal for the Devil, but I didn't have 3 players in 2 hours. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Oh, it's a 2-hour game?
It might be more than that. It's at least
Oh,
120
wow.
minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you need exactly 4
Oh,
players.
another thing that a ton of games had, by the way, as a heads up,
Yeah, yeah.
so many games had player screens again.
Trending.
So
Player screens
many
are
right
trending.
now. And what the player screens were was interesting because even with Deal for the
Oh, cool.
Devil, they're like little houses
Oh, neat.
kind of thing.
And do they have,
Like,
like, information on them, or are they just,
I
like,
think so.
blocking view, obfuscation? Or are they both?
I
What game
think that one
functions
is
do they have?
information. I did see one that was a clever idea. Oh, but ended up being a giant wasted use. So there was this one game, I can't remember what it was, but it was almost like a full cardboard house castle thing between the two players.
Mhm.
But what was really wasted was it wasn't much more than that, other
Yeah.
than dividing the players. And I was like, oh, good initial thought. Didn't really follow
Yeah, you
through on
flubbed on
what
the
that could have
execution,
been.
right?
Well,
Yeah.
like that could have been so many things. Why didn't you put
Inspiration
stuff
versus
in the
execution.
house?
Hmm.
Right? Make the house do stuff. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
know Steen is saying that he loved the box art for Lacrimosa. Did you, by the way, hear
La-
the singing?
Lacrimosa's on my list of I gotta get.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tribes of the Wind is also on my list. See, again, all these were the pretty boxes, but to be honest, I'm not getting them to the table anytime soon. In fact, I'd be better off just waiting to play them at Gathering and deciding if I ever want to purchase them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You live in Toronto. You don't got that much space in your house.
No. So, again, if you notice what I was doing here, like, and I flip games, like I give them away all the time
Yeah.
too. But I was looking for things that did something I haven't seen before.
Yeah, and stuff that would make a difference for work, right? Um, what about accessories? Did you see any cool accessories while you were
There
over
were
there?
some really cool ones, like people making really cool trays that are a bit like more transportable because they could close. So you could bring things with you. Kind of
Oh,
like
neat.
imagine game trays, but they weren't specific to anything and they actually were like more like Tupperware.
Right.
I don't know if that makes any sense,
No, no,
but
no. That does make sense. It brings
uh
me back to like the 70s, though. But yes, it makes sense.
yeah, or whatever you want to say. It's like some sort of um containers. There was definitely a lot of that. I mean, there's always dice, but I didn't see anything that was particularly interesting
Hmm.
in that way. But it was neat to see all these like storage bits,
Right.
or like rethinking like bringing your games with you. And I
Right.
don't just mean
So
shove them in a big bag.
no, it's like, how do we contain them? How do we keep all the things in the right place? How do we stop them from getting scuffed? All these things that we care about as hobbyists, right? Andrew says that he thinks that Evergreen is going to do well. He likes the minimalistic art style, and they're treeples, and treeples are cool. Cool.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of shaped pieces.
Yeah.
Those big. There's like airplanes, and as I said, like mushrooms. You name it. It's every shape now.
All right. What about the best snack food that you had? Usually, the one that we get to see a lot of is those hurricane slash tornado potatoes
Now
that
people want
everybody
to have
likes.
their currywurst,
Oh,
which
currywurst and
ends up just
fries.
kind of being like I was hoping for more curry. It basically just ends up being a bratwurst like slathered in barbecue sauce.
Hmm. But they
That's
love it.
pretty
All
much
right.
what a currywurst is. They love every form of potato.
Every form of
I
potato.
will say there was a lot of fresh bread and some really nice fresh cheese when you got it.
That's good.
So that was really nice from like more like that because otherwise everything else was probably like beef, pork, and potatoes.
That's funny. And yes, Jesse, the Chinese Communist Party is very afraid of ghosts and time travel. Just so you know. What about meal? What was the best overall meal that you had?
That is a good question. I would say my best meal is actually probably Amsterdam, not
Oh, okay. So
Essen.
not at Essen, but Amsterdam. What'd you have in
uh,
in Amsterdam?
We had, there were some really, really nice ones, but there was a really neat one in particular that I would say was a great experience. I think it was called Pesca, and it was kind of like a fish market.
I was
Like they
just
had
gonna
all
say it
this,
sounds fishy.
they had all these. You almost basically it was like standing at the front of a fish market. Like they would load it up, and
Oh,
then
okay,
that's what
okay.
all your meals would become based around.
Very cool. That's neat.
And
I like that.
that was really neat. I actually ended up finding, okay, again, things that people don't look for. Near the train station, there's a really nice chocolate shop. So
Oh,
one of the things I brought home was chocolates to try because they do all of these really fun like jellies and things like that in
cool.
a lot of the chocolates. I'm not a marzipan fan. They had some really pretty ones, but I wasn't going to eat them. So if you like marzipan,
I do like marzipan.
that's a thing. There are some really pretty
I like
ones.
marzipan more than I like chocolate. So
But there was like chocolatiers there and stuff
yeah,
like that. So I looked for the other stuff sometimes when I go to cities, right?
yeah, not just the games.
Well, I mean, like, okay, my husband doesn't care about this stuff. So it's
But
like,
he
what am I
cares
gonna
about the
bring home?
chocolates.
I'm gonna bring him chocolates, right?
So funny. Um, any other questions from people in the audience? You can put them in the chat and we'll get them to Erica as we're going through our scroll list of stuff. So, Erica, if people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Oh, at Erica Buiras.
There you go. And you can find me at Senfeng Lim on the Twitters and at Meeple Syrup for the both of us, and Alara as well at TT Void or at Meeple Syrup. Definitely join the Meeple Syrup Shop Top page on our Facebook. And if you like what you see today and in the future, you can check us out on patreon.com. One second, just I think I forgot to download something.
Oh.
Um, and while I'm downloading something, Erica, is there any final advice that you want to give? So you've given a bunch of good tips about book time with people, to actually play games, go to the toy store, carry a second piece of luggage, um, carry a bottle opener with you. What other advice do you have for people for their first time going to the spiel or otherwise?
Pace yourself. You know what it is? It's I will say if you are pitching, for some reason, there was a trend that a lot of publishers were completely booked up Thursday, Friday, but had space later Saturday and most of Sunday. So if you had something to pitch, you actually probably could have gotten time. I don't know if
Huh.
that is a just current trend right now or in general or what is happening, but there was definitely time with people. So um, don't you never know when you can squeeze in a meeting. And also, you never know what you're gonna find. I didn't realize I was potentially gonna be brokering a bunch of deals. So,
Oh, did you broker a bunch of deals?
well, they
That's
were in
super
talks with a few
cool.
games right now.
Okay. Um, and I'm hoping someday we get to hear that about that. All right, so everybody, that's what a host panel looks like. If you haven't seen what our host panel is before, where we just talk about a topic for the whole hour, and we take your questions and we do whatever we can, and it's just that's the way we do it. So if you are interested to maybe supply us with some ideas of what we can do in the future, we'd be very, very happy to take your requests for topics for our host panels. And why I'm telling you that is because we will have another one in 4 weeks. But let's see what we've got coming up for you in the meantime. Let me just load up the media here. Boop, 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 boop. And we've got it here and it's coming in and we are going solo right now with this one. So we have coming soon. We have next week on October 19th, we have John DeCampos, who is the designer and illustrator of Black Mold. We'll be talking about that. It is coming to Kickstarter, so we want to give him a little bit of some props and some pops and talk mostly about art and illustration. And John has some very, very lovely, lovely thoughts about AI images. He refuses to call it art. And we'll talk about that. So come on and chat with John about all those things. And let's see here. Oh, Adam Young is saying that he got very hazelnutted out when he lived in Germany. It's a treat in Canada, but everything was hazelnut in Germany, all the chocolate, everything. And then he's going to go filter his potential pre-orders based on Erica's recommendations. Oh yeah, and then we have Cassandra coming up. on November 2nd. So that's Cassandra Whitaker Kawasaki. She is on vacation right now, away from Funko, but she is a production manager at Funko. She'll be here on November 2nd, my birthday. Happy birthday to me. And we'll welcome Cassandra Whitaker Kawasaki that day. She's on her honeymoon right now, so she'll be back and she'll talk to us about what a production manager actually does. Because we can't all be designers, we can't all be illustrators and graphic designers. What else is there? What other roles are there within tabletop industry where you could potentially get a job? And then on November 9th, we have another host panel coming up. So every 4 weeks is a host panel. October 26th. I'm not exactly sure what we're doing yet. We have a bunch of people lined up and confirming dates. I know Elisa Teague is coming on at some point. She's like a tour de force in terms of role-playing games, game design, all that kind of stuff. And we want to get her on to chat about stuff. So she might be somebody else who comes on in and around that time. We'll see. There's a bunch of people on our list, and we'll tell you more about them in the weeks to come. So on that note, let's say goodbye to everybody, and we'll talk to you real soon. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with us in the time we ran over. Erica, thank you very much for giving us your lowdown on your first, but not last, Essen experience.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.